This segment is brought to you by Buick. Exceptional by design.
My name is Dominic Ordorn. My position is a Regional Overdose Prevention Coordinator for Region 3 for LDH. What this event is that we are holding over here, it is the Survivor event. It's something that of a 4-part series that we've put on. We were very ambitious with it. We shot for all 4 of the different libraries through Terrebonne Parish, and this is the final one. Ironically, it was rescheduled, and I'm glad that everyone can make it out and be here today. The ambitions and the goals that we have is to actually have the outreach, to be able to help the people that need the help, to be able to be there for people that actually need the help, and to actually just be able to provide the education, the knowledge, and allow them to be able to make the decisions and the choices going forward. We can't, of course, force anyone to do anything in life, but what we can do is provide the education for them to make the safe choices and smart choices. So what we have today is a presentation from LDH, the Louisiana Department of Health, that will be held by me. And then we have guest speakers, which will be telling their stories and telling their experiences. Because at the end of the day, we can't relate if we haven't been there, but someone that has been there, has gone through it, and has made it through it will be able to tell a story that we have not been able to tell ourselves. So we do have vendors here today. We have all kinds of different vendors, different services, different opportunities to be able to help, to be able to give them a resource that they may not have known priorly. So this is something that we've been providing at all 4 of the Survivor events that we've held. So I look forward to being able to give and to be able to show what we actually offer from Louisiana Department of Health and as a parish and then as a region, as Region 3.
Thank everybody for coming out to this great event that Dominic's put on for us on opioids, the risk that our communities face from them, and the steps that we can take to mitigate these risks and move past this. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Without any further ado, I'll introduce Judge Arsenault, and we'll get the show rolling.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Brooks. All right, so I'm Judge David Arsenault. I'm the presiding judge of the 32nd Judicial District Court Family Preservation Court. And let me take a minute to explain to you what that is. There are about 7 or 8 specialty courts in the state of Louisiana known as family preservation courts. And we're a very specialized court, and Terrebonne Parish is fortunate to have one of these. And here's what we do. We help people with substance use problems, parents with substance use problems, whose children have been removed from them by the state for one specific reason. A child can be removed from a parent for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes it's poverty, sometimes the parent's incarcerated, but often it's because the parent has a substance use problem, a drug or alcohol problem, and the parent is not able to take care of the child, or the child would not be safe with the parent. So if the state steps in and removes a child, we have a special program through the Family Preservation Court which is designed to help reunite those parents with those children by addressing their issues and getting them on the road to recovery so that the child can be reunited with the parents, mothers and fathers. We have both men and women in the program, and the program is strictly voluntary. A parent whose child is removed comes under the auspices of the state Department of Children and Family Services, and they can follow the program that the department has for them. But we have a much more intensive program. It involves drug testing 2 to 3 times a week. It involves meeting with the judge twice a month. It involves meeting with our staff of professionals whenever necessary, sometimes daily. And it involves an intensive treatment program, which we follow and we make sure is being followed. So you can see that anyone who comes in the Family Preservation Court is in a very intensive program designed to address their substance use issues on a daily basis if necessary, as opposed to those people whose children are in custody who are just following the ordinary Department of Children and Family Services program where there's not as much supervision or intense care, if you will. So the folks who come in our program do it voluntarily. No one is in our program because they've been forced to do it. They come in because they want to do it. And frankly, that makes my job as the judge of the Family Preservation Court a little bit easier because I'm dealing with participants who want to be there. Not only do they want to be reunited with their children, but they want to address seriously the problems that brought them into the situation that they find themselves. So we've been in existence now for over 4 years. And the program generally takes about a year for someone to complete. And we do it in 4 different phases. And we have at this moment almost 30 people who are in various phases of this program. We just had a graduation ceremony for 6 of our participants. And those folks graduated last week from the program. That doesn't mean they're finished with us because we still have people who come back to talk to us and seek guidance, and we're happy to help them. But we did graduate 6 people who have completed the program, did everything we wanted them to do, and 6 people who we really think are very well on the road to recovery. All of them have recovered their children. They've been reunited. And they're taking care of their children now instead of foster parents. So we've had great success with the program. And even if we have a participant who doesn't finish the program, we feel like we've accomplished some good because we've given them the tools to address the problems that they have. Some of them come back even after they leave us, and some don't. Some don't come back because they didn't succeed at all. And some come back just for reinforcement, and they're raising their children. So we don't measure our success just by how many people we graduate, although we're happy to have someone who finishes completely. But we do, we think, a lot of good over and above the graduates that we have. We've recently instituted another program, and it's called the Embrace Program. And I want to take a minute to explain what that program is. Family Preservation Court is limited to parents whose children are in state's custody and who have a substance use problem. That's, strictly speaking, the only people who qualify to be in Family Preservation Court. But it occurred to us some time ago that we have people who are about to be parents, who have substance use problems, who want help. And by duplicating the model that we have for the people who have the children, we hope to help those that don't have the children yet. So what we have is we have pregnant women who have substance use problems. They don't have children yet, so they don't qualify for Family Preservation Court, but they want help. So we've expanded the program to bring those folks in so that we can help them enough so that that child that is born months later is not a child who's drug affected. And we've had some success with that already, even though we started the program just within the last couple of months with a very generous grant derived from the Opioid Settlement Fund. Some of you may be familiar with that, but it's a national program where money received from opiate litigation is made available to help people who have substance use problems. And so we were able to secure some of those funds in order to pay the professionals that do the work in the Embrace program. As the Family Preservation Court judge, I don't get paid to do that job. I do that job along with my regular duties. But it has been, I have to tell you, one of the most rewarding things that I've done in the 27 years that I've been on the bench. I've been doing this for a little over 4 years. And I have learned, as I tell our participants, I learned as much from you as you learned from me. Until I started this, I had no idea what the life of an addict was like, the depths to which they might go to deal with the issues that they have. So it's been an eye-opening experience for me. And I have to tell you, my attitude about substance use problems has changed over the last 4 years. I will tell you, I'm convinced, based on my own experience, no one wants to be an addict. No one wants to be an addict. And when you have a substance use problem that's interfering with your ability to function normally, you've undergone some physiological changes, and your brain is affected, and you're not able to make the decisions that you might need to make, that ordinary people would make, that would be sensible and logical. And we address these issues through the 4 phases of our program. So we've had a great deal of success. 2 of the people who've been through our program are here tonight. One is a very recent graduate, and one is maybe our first graduate. And I think they're going to tell you a little bit about their stories, and I think you'll find it enlightening. I'm open for questions. If anybody here has a question about how our program works or what we do, what we can't do, anybody? Anything at all? All right. I'm going to turn it back over to Dominic then.
So in Terrebonne Parish, which that's where we're at right now, working together with the coroner's office, the coroner, this is a really, really interesting data, but we haven't had an all-time low on overdose deaths since 2018. And so since 2018, we have only climbed in those numbers, and it's been a steady climb, and it's been a progressive climb, and it's just been rapidly going down. But it wasn't till 2024 where we finally had a reduction in those numbers. So just to put into the statistical value, in 2023 is when I started this position, and that's whenever we started getting the data numbers. And in 2023, we had 67 overdose deaths in Terrebonne Parish. This is reported from the coroner's office for Terrebonne. And then in 2024, we finally had a great number. It's not the best number, because the best number would be 0, but we had a 46% drop, and it was 36 deaths in 2024. So this is a massive reduction in these numbers. It's the first time that we've seen it since 2018. So when we're looking at what is happening and what efforts are being made, we're seeing that it's getting progressive. And then so far in 2025, we're still not there yet. We're still just getting into September, but we're still only at 26 right now. And the goal is, of course, to have a lower year than last year. So if we can make that number be under 36, then yet again, we're still on that decline. So that's the data. Those are the data points that we're actually seeing. So later in the slide, you're going to see a website that tracks overdose deaths, right? So there's something that is not in the slide that I wanted to talk about. There's something that gets reported as polysubstance. So polysubstance is whenever there's multitude of drugs in the system. So this could be, maybe morphine that was medically prescribed, and maybe cannabis, these 2 different things. So cannabis typically will not cause the overdose death, but it would be the morphine. But the factor that remains is that it goes down as polysubstance because there's 2 drugs in the system, so it doesn't go down as an opioid death. And so this is why the tracking number is a little bit construed, and so this is why we have to look at it and see the coroner's office data and seeing. And some of them aren't related with drugs. This isn't related with, street grade. Sometimes it's an elderly individual that may have taken their medicine, and it could just be morphine, and it was just too much. Maybe they may have took too much of it. Maybe they forgot they took it, and this is what caused the overdose death. And so it's just awareness to the entire situation overall, and just surrounding yourself in it to understand that we are making a progress in it. But anyway, those are the stats. Those are the numbers. I am a number guy. I like statistics because nothing's better than seeing the data and seeing that the efforts being made by everyone in this room, like Judge Arsenault, wherever he went, where Judge Arsenault has pointed it out. The efforts being made by everyone in this room is showing, and is finally showing. The numbers are finally starting to come down. So we could get into the PowerPoint presentation. The objectives of this presentation is going to be able to define what the opioid use disorder is, understand the risk, identify. We're going to learn harm reduction strategies, and we're going to see exactly what is going on, right? So examples of opioids. Almost all opioids were created for medical use at one point in time. So this could be, you got oxy, you got hydro, you got morphine, all these different kinds of treatments, all these different kinds of medical usages were all designed for pain relief. And then you even have something, which is it's a psychostimulant, which cocaine isn't an opioid, but still used for medical grade. They have medical grade cocaine. Well, what's happening is fentanyl is going inside of the cocaine, and when they're splitting it, now you have an opiate inside of a psychostimulant. So the psychostimulant isn't causing the overdose and the reception to where you're lacking the oxygen. It's actually the fentanyl that's inside of it. So even though it isn't up here, it is not an opioid, we have to be aware that even something as simple as cocaine is getting laced. So what is going on is some of these are being used as party drugs. Some of these are being used through society as a whole as a way to cope with life. There's always a search of bigger and better. There's a stepping ladder. There's a slow ladder of progression until you start getting to things like heroin or fentanyl or something even called carfentanil. When we look at it, we have to know how they work. What is the actual reaction that's happening? This is where I really like to go into the little neuro nitty-gritties that we talk about. So you have so many receptors in your brain, right? Not used to holding a mic. I usually just talk real loud, so I can't use both my hands here. But we have these receptors in our brain. And so what these receptors, what they do is they get attached, like they attach these opiates. So when you take an opioid, or you take, maybe let's say I have morphine injected into me, these opioids go attached to these receptors. And when these opioids go attached to these receptors, it sends pleasure signals through the body. It starts relieving the pain, right? So what happens is if it's an overdose, you have too many of these opiates in the system, too many filling these receptors, and too many signals getting sent through the body, which eventually causes the overdose. What is the overdose is the lack of oxygen. So the lack of oxygen going through, this is what the actual overdose is, and that's where Narcan really comes into the picture. The Naloxone comes into the picture. Substance use disorder. So a substance use disorder is treatable. It is a lifetime treatment. This is something that you will be experiencing for life. This is something that it will be a work in progress. My favorite word through all of psychology is epigenetics. So epigenetics is something that you have to understand that some people may be predispositioned to have a more addictive personality or addictive behavior to, it could be opioids, it could be drinking, it could be gambling. There's a plethitude of what they could actually be getting addicted to. So right here, substance use disorder, this could actually be a change in the genome structure whenever you're actually getting ready to have a child, and then your child may have a predisposition to being able to be more addictive, right? So we go over to opioid use disorder. What is the increased risk? This is people who take opioids. I played soccer my entire life. I've had injuries. I've had severe injuries. And so in these severe injuries, I would get prescribed opioids. I had friends on soccer teams that got prescribed opioids, and I had friends that got addicted to things because you'd never know who may get that trigger from it. And then whenever you have it, if you have to keep going through it, if you have to keep taking it, it will prolong your tolerance, and then that tolerance builds, and you think you have to self-medicate whenever you stop taking it, and this is where it starts to steamroll. So signs of substance use problems, this is whenever we have to, So you have shifting moods, you have different kinds of things that's going on psychologically that you'll be able to notice of this person, where it may be increasing the usage because your tolerance is getting there. You may feel like you have to do it for your self-medication. You feel like you have to keep going. You may start with work-related issues. This is a big negative thing that people may not notice because their personality may change. They may be more irritable. They may be more relaxed when they're on it. You never know where that range will fall. There is a plethitude of different kinds of signs and symptoms. So how does Narcan work? This is yet again one of my cool little neuro things. So when an opiate is attached to the receptor, this opiate has a strong affinity to that receptor. And then Narcan, which the medical is naloxone, Narcan is a nasal spray that goes through the mucous membrane. And so I think that's so interesting on its own right that it just absorbs straight through the mucous membrane to get to the brain itself, goes to the receptors. And what's so interesting about this is that it has a stronger affinity to the actual receptor than the opiate. The receptor desires it, easy term, to have it more. And so it basically kicks out this little opioid and replaces it with the naloxone. And when that naloxone fills that receptor, now those opiates become free-floating. They're just free-floating in the air. This is dangerous in its own right, but it saves the life in the instant moment. So Narcan lasts between 30 to 90 minutes, but there's something called a half-life of a drug. And this half-life of a drug can range and vary dependent on a plethitude of things. So Dr. Brooks back there would actually be the best one to ask about this because I am not a doctor. I will never proclaim to be a doctor, but Dr. Brooks would understand it. there's a half-life. Like morphine may have a 4-hour, and this is not a direct quote, but morphine may be 4 hours. And if Narcan runs out in 30 to 90 minutes, those opiates will still be free-floating in the brain. And then once that Narcan, that Noxolone runs out, they could just reattach. So we work with a guy, he's been in paramedics for 20 years, and he's explained to me that they used to shoot him out whenever it was an injection. They would come to, they'd be mad that their high was ruined. And then when that Narcan ran out, there's times that they'll just go right back unconscious because of those free-floating opioids. So whenever we're administering and we're actually using the Narcan, right, we have to understand what it actually works against is opioids. It's not going to work against, psychostimulants like methamphetamines or cocaine or cannabis or anything like that. It's not going to work against those, but it's going to work about the opiate. So it could be a vape laced with an opiate. It could be as simple as, if you're smoking a joint and the joint had an opiate on it that got through the actual heating process. Or it could be you actually just took an opioid and it was too strong, it was too potent, and now you're overdosed. Narcan brings out and saves that situation of the overdose, right? So what does an opioid overdose look like? Eyes typically get dilated. It'd be like real pinpoint. Fingertips will start turning blue, lips start turning blue, different kind of coloration. They're not responsive, kind of like in a comatose state. Narcan's very safe to use, so if you expect or you're expecting or thinking someone is actually having a overdose and they're in this comatose state, you could actually administer the Narcan without fearing of these adverse effects. The first step that you're actually going to do is call 911. When you call 911, typically it's about 4 to 5 minutes before 911 arrives. This is in most parishes in Louisiana. When the 911's on the way, you administer the Narcan. When you administer the Narcan, you want to put them in the life-saving position. So everyone has different nasal construction. This is something that we just got to be aware of. You never know what happened as a kid. Maybe someone got hit in the face with a ball and their nose is now sideways. You don't know what happened. So I always just suggest this just for safe being. So say you inject the Narcan into the left nasal, the nasal cavity. What you're going to do is roll them to the right side, put their leg over, and then you're going to put their arm over. So this way, if someone has not been breathing for a while, they may start throwing up. And so you don't want them to throw up, come back down, and now you have a whole different issue that we're dealing with, where now they're gagging on their own throat, right? So you want to keep them in the life-saving position. After 2 minutes, you want to administer another dose of Narcan. So this time, like I always say, administer to the other nasal cavity, whichever one you didn't do first. So say the right one, you're going to administer to the right one, roll them over to their left side, leg over, arm over. By this time, they should be coming back too. If not, paramedics will be there within 4 to 5 minutes. The key here, I work with the sheriff's office in Lafourche very closely. The key here is that it's a medical tool. It's medicine at the end of the day. I don't take ibuprofen thinking, 1 minute later I'm going to feel better. I take NyQuil and that puts me pretty much to sleep, but it still takes 20, 30 minutes to do it, right? But with Narcan, it's the same concept. It takes time for it to go through the mucous membrane to attach to the opioid, to attach to the receptors, kick the opioids out. It takes time. It's a delay. It takes time to get there. So you can't just keep administering and administering. And I understand that if you're standing over someone that may be unconscious and not responsive, I've never been in that situation. I can't even begin to imagine the kind of stress or what I would be experiencing standing over someone and hoping they're going to survive. But at the end of the day, administering the Narcan over and over and over again isn't going to have more of an effect as waiting for it to last 2 minutes and then do it again, because it is medicine. It does take time. So that's what Narcan looks like right there on the screen. It's a little injectable. Each one has one use. Use it, it's used, and then each case, which is back there, has 2 inside of it. We actually give that out at every single health unit. Every single health unit has it on a table. So if you don't feel like talking to anyone, if you have a friend, if you think you know someone, every health unit has them on tables where you can actually go and get them, right? So this is some data. This is some very interesting data that's sadly showing what's happening with our youth. I work very closely with the JJC, and with the JJC, this is the juvenile justice system in Terrebonne Parish, or corrections facility in Terrebonne Parish, and I have been told this isn't an opiate, but methamphetamines are affecting kids 14 and up. So this is something that is going around. This is a very strong psychostimulant, if not the strongest psychostimulant. Methamphetamine could create signs of paranoia, schizophrenia, With prolonged usage, it actually could create abscesses on the organs. So methamphetamine is a very, very dangerous drug to be dealing with. So knowing that this is starting to happen, this is just talking about, smaller, like, some heroin, but this is not talking about methamphetamine because it is focused on opioids. But I like to bring awareness to what's happening in our parish, in our region, right? So this is the decrease in the epidemic. So they use the word epidemic, so I could use it. So the epidemic that we are facing with the opioid crisis, we are at a decrease. Like I told you, we have reported a decrease for the first time in 2024 since 2018. And then this is the site that I was telling you about right here, 1420. 1420, just to show y'all for Terrebonne Parish Coroner's data, we had 67 in 2023, 36 in 2024. And every year prior was about 60 range. I don't know the exact numbers off my head to list out 5-6 years, but right here we could look at it. They actually reported 5 total for Terrebonne Parish. So what was 5 because of polysubstance, like I was explaining before this presentation actually started, to give a deep understanding of what actually was happening. Right here is other substances related. These are just a little bit of what we have to go. Usually I get close to the board, but we have Adderall, Ritalin, cocaine and methamphetamines. So right here, over here, we have the focus drugs. You never know who may actually be partaking in it. You never know who may actually, you could have a 4.0 student that may need that little extra push. And there comes Adderall. Xanax, I used to be a lead chef over here. Xanax, I had multiple different people that were on the line that used to take Xanax because it was just a party drug. And this was going around when I was in school, because I grew up down here. This was going around the schools whenever I was in school in 2015. So we have to see what's the key factors that we're actually facing with youth too, because the youth is what we're actually focused on in multiple ways, because whenever the addiction starts young, it follows them for the rest of their life. And so vaping right now, this is a very serious and long-term effects associated with vaping. It used to be called popcorn lung, but now it's starting to be called a volley. A volley is this new term that they're actually using because there's a plethora of side effects that's actually happening with vaping. First of all, with vaping, it's been around since 1953. Within 3 years, they knew that it was so bad for you that they kind of took it off the market. It came back because money is a very big cause of everything. And so each time that they make a new law about vaping, they release a different variation of a vape to be able to keep selling it. But now they made it illegal for youth to be able to get their hands on a vape pen. Most of the times when I'm doing presentations to youth, they think my clicker right here is a vape itself, because they make vapes look like this to be able to disguise it from teachers, from their parents. We look at what's going on, what's the effects of the actual e-cigarettes or the vapes. There's an immeasurable amount of chemicals that's going inside of it. I cannot even begin to understand. My brother's a chemist, and we cannot even begin to understand what can make cotton candy flavored vapes and what actually goes into this. But there's something like aerosol inside of it, and the fun one is formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is a preservative that goes inside of people once they pass away, and this preservative's in vapes, and so when they're actually hitting the vape, something that's very interesting, most people don't know, this is a little fun fact, completely off topic, but it deals with vapes. Does your lungs have nerve endings on the inside, right? On the inside of the lung, do you have nerve endings? The answer is no. So you have a thin lining around, and yet again, I'm not a doctor, but I've inflamed that thing, and it's the most painful thing I think I've ever felt. But you have a thin lining around. But on the inside, you don't have those nerve endings. So I have a nice little steam burn right here on my arm, and I could tell you a steam burn hurts. I could tell you a steam burn hurts real bad. And most people in here has probably cooked at some point in time where they've actually burned themselves from steam. So imagine how hot this coil, that heating element inside of a vape is getting to heat the gel up to a vapor, and then that vapor is going down your throat into your lungs and sitting there. So imagine the damage that it could actually be doing to leave these things inside of it while your lungs heal otherwise, right? Those just stick and stay inside, and you're not going to feel what the damage is actually doing inside of your lungs. So that's just a little fun little side part. But this is the nitty gritty. This is like the beautiful example right here of what's actually potent. We have, I'm going to turn purple. We have over here, we have heroin. That's how much heroin it typically takes for someone to overdose. Little thing about heroin. So heroin is used to be one of the worst drugs that you could take. It still is one of the worst drugs you could take. So I wish I had a little Venn diagram instead of using my arms, but I'm going to use my arms. I don't know how it's going to look. But when heroin gets into, so right now, I'm tired. I went to a concert last night. I'm a pretty tired person right now, but I'm still having a pretty good day. And so with a pretty good day, I'm right here, 90%. Worked out, ate, had good food, good people in my life. I'm right here. I'm at a 90%, right? And on a flat 180, I'm right in the middle. But if I won $1 million, I'd probably be really happy. I'd probably be down here at a 145-degree angle. I wouldn't be fully happy because your brain doesn't let you. Your brain does not let you be the happiest possible because it protects itself. But then yet again, my mom's going through chemo right now, and if she passed away, I'd be a pretty upset person. I'd be down here. I wouldn't be all the way down here. That's yet again impossible. Your brain protects itself. I'd be right here. Maybe a 75, maybe a 60, roundabout. But we're humans. We're resilient. So I'm going to move on past it. I'm going to get better, right? I'm going to get back to my 90 because we're resilient. But someone who injects heroin, one time use of heroin, what happens is it blows it all the way to 180. It goes past all of these neuroreceptors. It goes past all of these, all the floodgates open. It just fries through. And what that is your brain does not like it. So what happens is your brain resets itself to where if my mom died, I'd be like a 65. That's someone who's used heroin. That's their new normal. So if you've ever worked with an individual, that's used heroin before in their life, and they're still using, or they're struggling, they'll tell you they're chasing their former self. And that's what they say, that they are chasing who they formerly used to be. Because every time they use heroin after, they're never going to chase that high that they used to be. They get back to who they used to be. And this is why Suboxone, methadone, these different kind of clinics like that, it helps them get back to where they were so then they don't feel like they need to keep chasing who they used to be because it helps them. And it's a lifelong battle from that point. That's what heroin does. And look how much stronger fentanyl is. Fentanyl's one use, you're hooked. 2 uses, you're addicted. Very quick, very efficient. And then now they're hooked and addicted. And now it's one of the hardest battles they're going to be facing through their life. And right here is carfentanil. This is not really on the street. This isn't really in Terrebonne Parish where we're finding it. This is something that exists, but it's not really prevalent or relevant at the moment. But just give you a little background on that. Heroin is highly addictive. It's a rapidly acting opioid, goes in your system. You're addicted very fast. This is the one opioid that never had any kind of actual pharmaceutical usage. This was a street grade from the start, very chemically made. Fentanyl is a very strong synthetic opiate. Yet again, there is usage in a hospital for fentanyl. There's fentanyl patches, very, very, very strong opioid that helps relieve the pain, but there is now street grade of it. And this is the picture that really brings it all together of how much is potentially fatal. So I'm a 240-pound individual, I'm 6'2", and if that got in my system, I'm hitting that floor real fast. But yet someone that may be only 130 pounds and 5'2", if it gets in their system, they may not hit the ground. Because that amount, it all reacts to your brain and how it attacks that neuroreceptor. It's not a matter of weight, it's not a matter of size. It's a matter of how it attacks that neuroreceptor, right? And how those opioids react with it, how it attaches to it. So this amount right here, people don't think it's really relevant. Okay, maybe a few numbers off, but in the Orleans, Baton Rouge area, they had 183 pounds busted. 183 pounds of this much. I cannot even begin to do the math of how many people that could fatally affect. Right here in St. James, St. John's, they had 3 pounds. This is about a year ago. Yet again, that much, what does 3 pounds do to an entire parish? And it does not matter about size, it does not matter about weight, it's a matter of how does it affect you in that moment. So, carfentanil, this is a whole different kind of breed of it. This is a tranquilizing agent. It's extremely strong, extremely potent, but this is something that we are not facing. But the problem is everyone seeks out bigger and better. This is ego. This is greed. We are humans. As human nature it is, you may want more money. You may want to climb up the food chain. You may want that stronger drug. It does not matter where you may go. At the end of the day, you may go somewhere. And that's why this is a risk, is because there is potential for people to want to pursue and chase it. Right here, this is something we have to be able to understand. They've also had lacing of Midol that they have seen. Midol is very strong for menstrual cramps. But right here, they're faking the pills. Yet again, when I started this position, we have a nice pretty paper on that table over there, nice pretty paper showing all these fake pills, fake opiates. And I was like, starting the position, I'm like, I'm a pretty smart guy. I got this. But I was pretty sheltered too at the same time. So when I looked at that paper, I was taking the pretty one. I was taking that pretty pill because I thought the more clean cut was a authentic pill, not the powdery one. I would have overdosed. I would have overdosed right there. Because if you actually go pop open your bottles that are prescribed to you from doctors, at the bottom of it, sometimes there is powder because they're not all really, really pretty. I'm not no pharmaceutical scientist. I don't work in pharmacies. But at the end of the day, I know that they have a pill press that goes shake, 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 and push. And that's how they typically make the pills. They're worried about the dosage. They're not worried if it's the most pretty looking carving on the pill or if it's the most pretty cut. They're worried about the dosage level. But a dealer, yet again, just like how I would have got caught on my first day at this job, a dealer is going to be worried about how pretty it is because someone like me or someone that is not aware would probably be more willing to take it, especially if a friend offers it, because they're not aware of what they're actually putting into their body. And this is where my age finally starts to show, turning 29 in a month, getting real old, I guess, because when I work with the kids at a juvenile justice facility, they're educating me about this. They are educating me about these emojis. So yet again, I must be getting up there because right here, I did not know half of these. This is from the state. They put this up here, and I could tell you that even the kids, when I'm working with them, they're informing me of different emblems they're using. They're informing me of more. They're like, how did you know this? Because this is actually what's getting used when they're messaging each other. And there's even more that's out there besides just this ones. And so that it's just something that we have to be aware of for our kids, because at the end of the day, the younger they get the kid addicted, the longer they have their client for the rest of their life. And this is, in my opinion, the strongest and most lethal thing. So I like to use this one as an example. I worked with Captain Johnson in Lafourche Parish very closely, and he told me xylazine was on an outbreak. So I was a huge fan of gorillas, but I found out gorillas are not as big as I thought they were. Gorillas are kind of only 5'2", 5'4", and about 450 pounds. And that sounds huge, but I was thinking 1,000 pounds, 6 foot tall animal, creature of muscle, but it's not. So I'm going to stop using that one as a reference point because it kind of disheartened me very much. But I'm yet again 240 pounds. I'm 6'2", and if xylazine gets in my system, I'm hitting the floor faster than anything. And there's a very high chance my heart is stopping because at the end of the day, my heart's a muscle. And xylazine's one of the strongest, if not the strongest tranquilizer that they use. So they use this for large game. They use this for elephants, giraffes, things like that, because it's able to put them to sleep for the prolonged time that they have to have them asleep. And it still has to be properly measured out, or else it could even kill these large animals. And I was not understanding. I'm thinking to myself, where are they actually getting this from? I'm where are they getting something that could go into an elephant or a rhino? And I'm not understanding where it's coming from. Vets, because there's cows, there's horses. We have cows and horses here. And it's vets. That's the answer. People are breaking into vets. Like I said, people are always seeking that bigger and better. They're breaking into vets to get the strongest thing they could get their hands on, which is xylazine. And that's where the understanding really comes into and devolves from, where we know what we're actually facing in society as a whole and what we actually have to be aware of. Harm reduction strategies, we kind of already went over this. The public health, this is all the different kind of people that are here for you. We're LDH, of course. We provide Narcan. We have multiple health units through all the different parishes. And then we have all kinds of different vendors. We have different partners, different agencies that all collaborate together. If someone comes into LDH and we may not have the answer for them, we're going to find that answer for them. We're going to find a partner that's going to be able to support them how they need to be supported. There's fentanyl test strips. So FTS, fentanyl test strips. This is a test strip. Yet again, this test strip is able to test for fentanyl. So say someone's using cocaine and they want to test and make sure their cocaine, this white powder, does not have actual fentanyl in it. The fentanyl test strips are made to be able to actually test and check and see if there's fentanyl inside of it. So when they use it, the goal, the idea is that they're at least not going to be laced an overdose from it, right? This is how it looks. So I like to point this out because I don't have kids, but I always iterate this. It's the reverse of a pregnancy test. So pregnancy, 2 stripes positive, 1 stripe negative. A fentanyl test strip's 1 stripe positive, 2 stripes negative. So we need to be aware just just be aware whenever it's going out, so people aren't hitting, 2 stripes and being like, oh, okay, it's clean. It's the reverse of it. This is how do you use it, how it breaks down. We have literature on it, so if someone needs it, it actually breaks it down for them. This is the 988 hotline. You could be able to call this. It's a crisis center. Of course, if it's a severe, urgent matter, 911 is the option. 911 is where you call. But this is a idea, and this is a principal center where you call, and they'll actually give you that support and the help that you may need. And there's my contact information, and I thank y'all for listening through my presentation. And if anyone has any questions before we start going to guest speakers, feel free to ask. Cool. Otherwise, thank y'all for speaking. And now I would like to introduce my friend. She actually is one of the graduates that just graduated, Miss Kayla. And here you go. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Kayla Naki. Before I start telling my story, I would like to touch some points on things Dominic said. One about how addicts search for their former selves. Yes, I went through that. I'm still in a partial identity crisis right now. It's because, I was a naturally optimistic and happy person before I became a heroin addict. And so after I became an IV heroin addict, you can never find happiness again. Nothing in the world will make you happy. The only thing that makes you, because your brain is literally hijacked. And nothing makes you happy besides doing heroin, like not living. You don't want to die on purpose, but you don't want to live. I mean, is the only thing that brings you any kind of joy, any kind of feeling for anything in the world, which is terrible when you have kids, when you have family, when you have a lot of people that want to see you do good. And it's like you can't even care about yourself because you're incapable of it. That's how powerful it is. So something else he said that I wanted to... Okay, well, I'll start telling my story now. So my story actually begins with prescription opiates. Actually, I was in a car accident when I was 14 years old, and I would take pain pills on and off then, but for the majority of the time I had a prescription. And then after a while, I just started finding them on the streets. And then after that, they either became too expensive or they just ran out. And then so I started doing heroin. And I didn't end up on the streets or anything like that, but it took control of my life for 8 years. I was working for my parents' business. I was stealing money from them. I was stealing money from my parents' business. I was just stealing anything after my money would run out from my paycheck. I mean, it grabs hold of your life. And like he was mentioning, you always want bigger and better. It's not exactly bigger and better. It's just your tolerance goes up. And so what you used to get high off of, you don't get high off of that same amount anymore. And so right at the end of I'm being an addict for life, of course, but right before I went into recovery, I was pregnant. And I got pregnant while I was on heroin, and I never went to the doctor the whole time I was pregnant. Now I have 3 kids. I went 3 kids before my daughter, and I went to all my doctor's appointments for my other kids, everything, but I wasn't a full-blown heroin addict then. So I didn't go to the doctor the entire time I was pregnant. And when the state took my baby, that's whenever I knew that, I had to change. And I have no other words to describe it besides clawing your way back from the pits of hell, honestly. That's what it's like to be a heroin addict. So you have to restructure your entire brain, and I'm finally just finding happiness again after a year. I'm finally starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I had to put in a lot of work for that. I had to take so many counseling classes. I had to be on medication-assisted treatment. Family Preservation Court has been awesome. Their program is awesome. I graduated last week. today, Judge Arsenault granted me unsupervised visitations with my kids. I have the key. This is what I'm most proud of, and I know we're supposed to always maintain personal anonymity, but I have the keys to. Never thought I'd have keys to anything again in my life. I have a vehicle. I have a house. My parents are proud of me. I had so much help from everyone in this community, and I'm just happy again. I'm finally starting to feel happiness again. Even though I was clean for over a year, when I would wake up, I still wouldn't be happy. I was just miserable. And so now I'm just finding happiness in simple things again in my life. And that's all I have for now.
My story starts when I was young. I lost my mom when I was 10 years old on Christmas Day. So that kind of set me apart from others. I started thinking I was different. And it wasn't long until I was a teenager, I started experimenting with solutions. Started drinking, and that increased to different things like ecstasy pills. And, you know, I got into a lot of trouble. I would be in the bars, fighting. My dad was an alcoholic. I'm so grateful for the family that I do have, though they never gave up on me, and my grandparents helped raise me. So, you know, I was in a courtroom one time, and the judge told me if I got one more charge, that he would multi-bill me. So it kind of scared me. I said, look, I'm gonna try and find a solution. But I did it my way, and I figured the solution was, I'm gonna go to school, I'm gonna try and get a job. So I started paramedic school. I'm still dabbling, you know, I get prescribed Adderall. I'm, you know, still drinking alcohol. And I finished as a basic EMT. Then on one of my last clinical rides to be a paramedic, I drank the night before and they smelt it coming out of my pores, so I got kicked out of school after 2 years of work. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna bounce back. I'm still young, arrogant. So I started to go to nursing school 2 years into the first, Ellie Fletcher's first RN program. I go 2 years prerequisites, 2 years into the program. I got kicked out of that as well because I didn't write my record down correctly. So after that, it was a big hit because two of the men that I looked up to the most had died while I was in school, my brother and my grandpa that helped raise me. So when everything hit me, it hit me like a ton of bricks, and I went into some really dark places after that. Started using methamphetamine and heroin, and I went on a pretty bad run. Again, I tried to fix the situation myself. In jail, I talked to some guys. We decided we're gonna go out of town, go to a rehab. You know, I did the rehab thing, did IOP. I guess I still wasn't ready because it wasn't long before I met a girl and I was back in Houma doing the same thing. So one thing that I will never forget is a new rock bottom I hit when she told me she was pregnant. And it wasn't because she was pregnant, it was because I didn't have a job. I was addicted, I was broke, I didn't have skills. So out of options, what I did was I asked God to take the wheel at that time. And, you know, I already asked my friends for help, nothing happened. I asked my family for help and nothing happened. So I reached out to God and I started going to church. And, you know, I realized eventually nobody was coming to save me and I had to save myself. So I started putting in the work. I dry knuckled for a little while, went to a sober living in Baton Rouge. Then, you know, I was like 90 days into recovery. And my son was born, but when he was born addicted to drugs, so he was taken by the state into their custody. So the only time I got to see him, I was out of town. You know, I was driving myself crazy because, you know, I wanted to come home and see him so bad. But I made one of the most important decisions I've ever made in my life at that point, and I had to trust the process. Because if I didn't take care of myself, then I can't take care of anybody else. So I stayed focused on me and my recovery. So 90 days go by, I get the opportunity to go to Houma. I go to Houma, I get into an Oxford house. I had someone tell me about family preservation court. I got into family preservation court. Yes, it was a tedious process. They asked me to do a lot of things. I got a sponsor. I worked the steps. I went to meetings. I stayed focused on everything I had to do. And it wasn't a short-term thing. I had to do this thing long-term. I stayed in the Oxford House in family preservation court for at least 18 months. So after I did everything they asked me to do, I walked into court one day, and I'll never forget this. Judge Arsenault, he pulled me aside because I'm not going to lie, I was fearful. I never took care of myself, so how am I going to take care of myself and my baby, you know what I'm saying? But some words that he spoke on to me was he said, you know, you did all this work, just enjoy your son. And you know, I stood with courage that day, and I walked out of the courtroom that day, one of the first graduates and the first man to go and get his son and graduate in that program that day. And now I have sole custody of my son, and that has changed my life so much. He brings so much joy to my life. And you know, doing drugs wasn't my problem. You know, it was just the beginning. I'm just scratching the surface if I get rid of the drugs, because I had to fix myself. And what I had to do was I had to figure out how to find joy and love myself again, because I wasn't content. But the way that I live today, it helps me love myself. And, you know, I had to learn how to forgive people. Today, the way I live is I keep myself in service. You know, every opportunity I get, I tell my story. And I'm involved with drug court as well as Oxford House still to this day. And, you know, my son, he just started pre-K. And I'm not gonna lie, I have to do CrossFit every day that I'm home just to keep up with him. But it's okay, because I love it. And, you know, I'm really grateful y'all gave me this opportunity to share my story, because it helps give me purpose in my life today, and that helps bring joy to my heart, and it keeps me going. And, you know, I stand here today, generational curses are broken. And I love my life, and I love y'all. Thank y'all. Thank you, bud.
Thank you.
This segment was brought to you by Buick. Exceptional by design.